Okay. Well, when you've lived as long as I have, 63 years almost, you've lived through a lot of different kinds of surprises. First of all, I know you're shocked that I've told you my age. And the other thing I hope you're shocked about is that I am that old. Because I think about it every day. It baffles me every day that somehow I got to be this old. You know, you just don't think it's ever going to happen. And then here you are. But here I am, and I am, excited and proud a little bit. Can't believe this has happened. Here I am, and I tell my students every day that, not every day, but almost, I am the oldest teacher in the school. And then they always look at me and say, Ms. Johnson, there's no way. You just can't be that old. I would think you're only 50. And you're old when that's a compliment, right? So here I am going to share you some of my surprises over the last almost 63 years. First of all, when I was in second grade, I was just washing my hands in the bathroom stall in the elementary school of Kennedy in Rexburg, Idaho, when an older sixth grade girl comes up to me and says, are you a half sister or a full sister to Scott? He's my older brother. I'm 7. I don't know what you're talking about with half sister, whole sister. But I do have this little mumble jumble things knowing that I know something about something in my family history. And I tell her that I'm full sister, of course. And then she says, well, what about his father? That's your mom's first husband, and he died. Are you his daughter? And I'm like, well, of course I am. I'm 7. Whose daughter am I? I guess I'm that daughter, right? And so I tell her, to the best of my knowledge, which is that my mom was pregnant with me when her first husband passes. This is not correct. I came 5 years and a second marriage later after my brother. That's when I learned that my family history might be a little different than other people's and a little bit out of the ordinary, and that might make you interesting. So when I thought about surprise, I thought about a little bit of shock and awe, and then that made me think about we have a family story that delivers a lot of that. You want to hear it? Okay. Well, I'm going to tell it to you anyway, whether you want it to or not, because this is a story that all of us in our family seem to share. A lot of people can talk about being adopted, which can be a surprise to some people, but I cannot one-up you, or actually my mother can one-up you, and that is the fact that she was not legally adopted until she was about 18 years old, almost an adult. And here's a little bit of this story. My mother was bought for $40 by my grandmother when she was about 2 weeks old. This happened in Seattle, Washington. And yes, it is illegal to purchase babies. And no, the birth mother did not sell her. From what we can gather, the institution, the place where she was born, the Home for Unwed Mothers, this is who was selling the babies. And so my mother was purchased by my grandmother for this $40, and she took her home. Then this is not the first baby that this woman, Hope, a single woman in the early 1930s, she'd also purchased a little boy earlier. But this little boy she gave to her father to raise, and he eventually adopted him. So this little boy that she bought was not her son. He became her brother. So if you're confused, you have every right to be. To sum it up, this is how it is. So this little boy that she purchased became not my mother's older brother, but my mother's uncle. So my family has a lot of these stories, but they're mostly about my mother, right? So when telling all these stories about my mother, I kind of forget to share my own stories. And this might make me a little, protection, right? That I don't have to be vulnerable and share my own challenges, maybe my own brave things that I've done. So I've decided I'm going to share a little bit tonight. I became a single mother when my children were 7 and 4 and 1. And I thought this was kind of minimized in my head because my mother became a single mother when she was 23. She was widowed, I was divorced, and she had 2 children under the age of 2. My sister was 2 years old, my brother was 10 days old when her first husband passed. So I always kind of thought my stories were a little bit more insignificant than hers, and I never really shared them. So, you bear with me, I'll be a little vulnerable. So I have survived domestic abuse from a very crazy man whose whole goal was to destroy me mentally, physically, and financially. And he did a pretty good job. We're still kind of digging out from all those things. And but my whole goal was to raise children and keep them whole. Do you know the story of King Solomon from the Old Testament? Even as a child, I thought that was quite an interesting story. Why would you put this in there for us to read about somebody cutting a baby in half, right? And since my divorce, I figured out that this is a story about keeping children whole. That you know who really cares about that child when they put that child's best interests before their own wants and needs. So as I made every decision for my children, these precious girls of mine, I wanted to make sure that I was keeping them whole, that I wouldn't let my anger, my fears, my insecurities, the triggers that would come about, make me help them be pawns in the game of this cruel game of chess that my ex-husband was playing. I wanted them to stay whole with everything I did. So I tried to respond with courage, with bravery, with honesty, with dignity, with compassion. Did I always succeed? Not always, but that was my goal. And in doing so, I've done a lot of brave things. And I'm proud of myself for that, and I hope my girls are too. And can I tell you that these girls now are 35, almost 36, 32 and 29, and they are such powerful ladies. They are smart and good and kind, and they bring so much joy to the whole world, to everybody that's around them, that even though they are scarred, I think they're whole. And to me, that's the best surprise of these 62 years of mine. Thanks.